Killer Cam in the building.
What's up, bro? How
How
you
you
doing?
doing, man?
Man, no complaints. What about yourself?
I am great. I am great. Yes, I'm glad you have the background. I needed all of that. I needed all of that energy.
Yes.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Awesome. So we're gonna give people a second to come on in the room, but in the
For sure.
interim, let's talk about this era of COVID and all of these things happening. How is that treating you as an artist right now,
Uh, I have mixed emotions, but it's all positive. You know how you get put through a time frame where you're a little uncomfortable right
man? Right.
before growth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like it's been an opportunity for me and anybody who's taken advantage of it to use this as an opportunity to self-reflect.
Right.
You can reflect on what you've done in the past, what worked, what didn't work, how something can come in and disrupt, the entire industry. Usually we reserve that for, like, let's say new sounds,
Right.
or something like that. It's like, wow, it's like when auto tune was first being used in the way that it was used when T-Pain was using it. It disrupted the industry. You know what I mean? The pandemic has disrupted the industry. Um, and no one saw it coming, but you've seen certain people acquiesce to the disruption quickly and figure
Right.
out how to navigate. So for me, that's what I kind of been doing, figuring out how to navigate. Um, and the pandemic has given me an opportunity to showcase a little bit more of myself than just a record would do or just an interview on paper would do. So um, it's been good, I'd say.
Nice, nice. I know part of that adjustment, that pivoting, has been your Candid show live on
Yeah.
Instagram. Yeah, so tell us a little more about that. I've checked out a few episodes. It's very engaging. Tell us more.
Um, I guess the whole thought process behind Candid was, being in the studios and around different artists and musicians for quite a while. You get things broken down to you in a different way than normal. You get backstory. You get those little small stories that are nuggets that you really are like, wow, I didn't even know this person knew that person who knew that person at the beginning. So I just wanted to be able to bring that type of conversation to the people. And I wanted to start with people that I had relationships with because I knew that we would be able to just kind of go into our zone of conversation, and in doing that, people who were onlookers would be able to get some insight or some backstory that they might not have known. Also, people want to be uh, they want to be able to talk about they want to go in depth a little bit more, than like an hour is a long amount of time.
Mhm.
So it's enough time for people to really feel like they get to know you, and I think you create lifelong fans when people feel like they know you as a person. So that's kind of the idea behind it. It's just being off the cuff, having a little direction, but being open to going in whatever direction, that we're led to go into.
Nice, nice. Thus Candid, because it's open, it's honest, it just flows. Nice, nice, nice.
Exactly.
So for those who are not familiar with this incredible gentleman, let me give you a little bit of background, a little backstory. So Cameron Corvet is a Grammy Award winning singer, songwriter, guitarist. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are actually a fourth generation singer songwriter. So who passed the gift of music along to you?
So it started with my great grandfather. He played 7 different instruments, and he was active in my mom's hometown, which is Cincinnati, Ohio. And then from there, it got passed to my grandmother, who she plays keys. And that's when the music element started really exploded in my family. Like, I really didn't understand the dynamics of church growing up. I knew that I was special in the confines of church because literally my family was all over the church. Like, everybody was a cousin or a relative in some way. My grandfather drove the church bus. My uncle was a deacon. My cousins played drums, one played organ. My uncle played bass. My grandmother played keys and was choir director. My aunties were singers. I was on the junior usher board. It was just all over there. So with my grandmother's generation, that's when the music really started to seep into the family. as a whole. And then, you know, it just got passed on to me, honestly, from there.
Nice, nice, beautiful. So it was destiny, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Awesome. So you then went on to Morehouse College in Atlanta and got your degree in French.
Yes, sir.
Not music, but French. So what did you do with that?
um, you know, I started out as a business major.
Okay.
And when I got to Morehouse, I saw a whole bunch of business majors, and they were wearing suits, you know, to come to class and do presentations. And I was just like, that ain't even my style, you know. French is a language that I started learning when I was in elementary school, around first or second grade. I was born in Louisiana, and that's where I started learning French. And I just always kept up with it through middle school, high school, and my first couple of years in college, I was a French minor. So then it got to a certain point where I was going to have to really go into those core classes of business, and I just didn't really, it really didn't fit me. So, you know, I decided to make French my major and business my minor, since I had already taken courses in both. So what that gave me was access to Spelman, which, as a Morehouse man, you know, that's not a bad place to end up. The only guy in class. It gave me a lot of sisters. It also, you know, gave me an understanding of a different side of myself. I was able to be a lot more sensitive in French class, because I knew, you know, that would be appreciated. So shout out to Spelman for sure, just as much as Morehouse. But after college, I worked in corporate America, and a friend of mine was like, "Man, you got a French degree, you should be a teacher." It's like, you get the summers off and you get vacation. I'm like, man, I should be a teacher. And it was an opportunity for me to be the French teacher that I didn't have growing up. So I taught middle school in Atlanta, middle school French in Atlanta, on the South Side. So I was able to teach black kids, you know what I'm saying, which I enjoyed. They came from a variety of socioeconomic backgrounds, but all had parents who wanted their kids to be educated and go on to college and that type of thing. So it was good to see black parents supporting their students. It was good for me because when I was growing up, I went to a lot of private schools, so I really wasn't able to connect. So it was almost like me going to school again. You know, the students would be joning, and I would get a joan in. You know, if a student was trying to joan on me, I would throw one back. So it was kind of like having that middle school and high school, because I taught in high school as well, experience that I didn't have. But at the same time, being able to recognize when a student just needed somebody to talk to that wasn't their parent, that had lived life a little bit more than they had and could give them some wisdom. There were times when, you know, I took a student out in the hallway and I would just be like, yo, what in the world, man, come on, you know? There were times I, you know, didn't do anything at all because I could understand the bigger picture and what it was like to be a student. So French was the avenue by which I learned how to songwrite better, but at the same time, it was an avenue by which I was able to give to the community that had kind of fostered my musical growth, you know, in college.
That's beautiful. I'm sure that representation as a black male educator, but especially in a foreign language, was just impactful for your students. So kudos to you for doing that. So
Thank
you
you.
started playing guitar during Morehouse or before Morehouse, correct?
Started playing right before Morehouse.
Okay, gotcha. So music carried throughout your college career and into your teaching profession. Were you creating music during that entire time?
Yeah, I was creating music the whole time. So I probably started releasing music while I was in college just to get an idea of like where I could fit in.
Mhm.
I was doing the typical thing like you know, the competitions and, you know, talent shows and all that. But I got in a situation where I met a guy who had his own equipment and he could make records, and you know, I ended up learning a lot from him. And I put together like a 3-song EP, and that was like the beginning of me kind of doing music, and it just continued no matter where I went, no matter what job I had, even in teaching. You know, I tried to use the guitar in the classroom a little bit. It became distracting, you know, when you're teaching and you got like 7th graders and 8th graders, they, you know, and you show them some type of fun, you have to be the one to rein in, you know, everybody. So it was like the guitar would kind of just, we would go down into this whole black hole and never come back out again. So I did it in some instances I did play. I would always try to have a guitar in the room so I could at least play while they were taking a test or something like that. You know, I just wanted to make sure my students remembered me, and I wanted to do things for them that they would be appreciative of. Like I used to let them shoot. Uh, I would give them all this work to do, and they would be like belly aching, and then I'd say, and then I would just ball up a piece of paper and go over to one of them and be like, if you make the shot into the trash can from your seat, no homework. And so then it's like this big momentum build and everything like that. And if they would make it, I wouldn't give them homework and that type of thing. Just being a man of my word and everything like that. But while I was doing that, I was releasing music. So I would go to school, be teaching all day, come home, try to grade papers or whatever it was, and then I would be out at an open mic, or I would be in the studio, or I would be trying to do a show. You know, it was very difficult to navigate. Didn't leave a lot of time for other extracurricular activities, but it made me appreciate like this time that I have to just be in the music industry without having to work. You know, I put my time in, you know what I'm saying? And I appreciate that time, but you know, I'm on to not teaching and not working type deal.
Right. Understood. So during all that time, you amassed quite a list of artists that you've worked with and collaborated with. Sting and Shaggy, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Tony Braxton, who is a personal favorite. She'll never not be timeless. Case, Freddie Jackson, Angie Stone. The list goes on. What has that been like? Just floating between artists and just moving through the industry.
You know, when you start as an artist, that's all you can see. You got tunnel vision. I'm an artist. This is what I do. This is the type of music I do. I've been playing the guitar almost since the beginning, you know, and it's always been something that I wanted to include in my artistry. And that's been the struggle within the industry. Sometimes people see you can sing and they just want to take you away from the guitar or the piano or whatever and make you into some type of other artist. And I've always been specific about bringing the guitar with me. Atlanta was the first place I came to where playing the guitar wasn't foreign. You know, I could play and there'd be other black people playing guitar and that type of thing. So I really felt like it was important to hold on to that. And I think that caused me to have to be more patient. Like when you're very specific about your goal or your dream, then you're not gonna just be willing to go for something else. And sometimes the residual effect of that is having to be patient for the time to come. So although I was heavily pursuing artistry and putting music out and teaching, there became opportunities for me to become a songwriter and write for other people. And I never was opposed to that. You know, Babyface is one of my biggest influences. And just as much as I like his artistry, I love his songwriting equally, you know, Smokey Robinson as well. So I was like, well, maybe, you know, my journey has been about thinking I know the way and being turned to the left and go straight and to the right. And then I get where I wanted to get. So I've been hard-headed at times in my career. But once I really committed to being a songwriter and learning the craft of songwriting and knowing that it was just an internship, you know, it's almost like going to college before going to the NBA and understanding as a ball player, you're going to learn some fundamentals. I was learning fundamentals when I committed to being a songwriter. So in the process, I get to work with these people that are like on the pantheon, you know, of people that I've always wanted to work with, people that I grew up listening to, people that my parents listened to. You know, Freddie Jackson is funny. Freddie Jackson and my father favor each other. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was this running joke. Yeah, me and my cousins when we were kids, because they favored each other so much, we used to think that my dad was Freddie Jackson leading a double life. So we would just be,
Oh,
because my dad always traveled. He's an attorney, so he would always be in and out of town. He was in the military. So we convinced ourselves that my dad was traveling and doing shows as Freddie Jackson and just
oh
not
my.
telling us. So I became a Freddie Jackson fan because I was my dad. You know what I'm saying? So Fast forward, I end up meeting, you know, a guy who had a relationship with Freddie Jackson's manager, and boom, I write a song. Freddie Jackson's down in the studio to record it. I'm looking at Freddie Jackson face to face, and I'm just like, full circle moment. That's how literally the songwriting has been for me. Everybody that I've worked with, every one of them has been an influence. Like Angie Stone. Angie Stone was influential for me because she co-wrote the first D'Angelo album. That is what really, D'Angelo taught me how to use my falsetto in a soulful way, because I was a classical singer coming up. So I had range, but I was using it in a very, you know, classical type of sense. So listening to like a Smokey Robinson, okay, cool, cool. But D'Angelo was like that modern reference where I heard the falsetto being used in a soulful way, just like somebody's, you know, chest voice or natural tone. And then Maxwell closely after that. So I'm a kid like, wow, this is okay. So it gave me something else to use the skills that I was developing in classical music on my own. So writing for everybody's been great. There are other people I want to write for and work with, but you know, looking back, I've kind of, you know, I'm on my way. Let's just say I'm on my way, and I appreciate every single placement that I've gotten. It has not just been something thrown at me. It's literally been divine intervention, like every time.
Nice. You are definitely well on your way. Who are some of those names? We want to name any names that are on the list, put it out in the universe.
I'd love to work
Manifest
with
it.
I'd love to work with Babyface. That's definitely top. You know, Babyface, Maxwell, D'Angelo. I love to work with Sade. I think she's amazing. John Legend. Um,
Yes.
you know, I like working with singers. So like I posted something about a cover of Soon as I Get Home by Faith a little earlier today, and I just love singers that make you feel something. I think it's easier to write for them when they know how to interpret the lyrics,
Yeah.
because otherwise if you're a singer and you're a songwriter, then you're interpreting for somebody else, and sometimes you can miss the mark when it comes to delivering the meaning of the words. But I mean, I'm sure there are artists that I don't know that I would love to work with. I mean, her, obviously, you know, those are artists that kind of goes without saying. You know, if the opportunity came, I don't really like an artist like her. I would never focus so hard on trying to work with her, because I feel like that type of situation happens on its own, you know, and some of it happens because you're doing, you know, you're doing your thing and you're being found doing your thing and doing it in excellence. And when people recognize that, they'll be like, I want to work with him, you know, type of thing. So yeah.
I like that. I like how you said that. If you're doing it with excellence, it will come to you, basically. I love it. I love it. So let's jump into your song list, and that's actually going to foster more conversation. The
Cool.
first song on your list is Don't Make Me Wait by Sting and Shaggy. This is a really important song for you. So
Yes.
I'm excited to listen to it, to share it with the audience, and then talk about it. We're going to play just a little bit, and then we'll talk, okay?
Sure.
Man, two giants in the industry, Sting and Shaggy. And you are one of the co-writers of that joint. So tell me about it. How'd that come about?
Okay. So I don't normally talk about this story, um, in the nature that I'm going to talk about it with you.
Okay.
So
Exclusive.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so man, somewhat the long and the short of it is, I'm here in my apartment. It's a Sunday afternoon, and I have a relationship with a lot of creatives in the Netherlands. And one of my friends in the Netherlands, who's a producer, was like, "Man, we really want to try to write some stuff." They were trying to have me do some writing for an artist over there that I still am very, very cool with. Um, and they gave me kind of like a reference of a Jason Mraz song, and I forget. It's called "I'm Yours." No, it's not Jason Mraz, or is it Jason
It
Mraz?
is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I like to make sure I'm correct. But You know, there's the song, "Oh, I can't wait no more, no more, da 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 da. I'm yours." And I was like, man, that song is crazy. You know, I don't know what I would be able to do like that. So a couple weeks pass, sitting on the floor, and I have my guitar, and I just started playing, and I started playing this rhythm, the guitar rhythm, and then as opposed to writing something down or looking at my phone, I just started singing. And you know, when you deprive yourself of those things that can be crutches to make you make life more complicated, that's when things really come out. So I'm like, man, all I had was "Don't Make Me Wait," and I'm like, all right. And I had been listening to Bob Marley and that type of thing, just zoning out because I went through a huge Bob Marley phase, and the chorus just came out just like that. And I'm like, wow, all right. So I go and I record the guitars and I record the vocals in my setup. And I sent it to my guys in Amsterdam. They loved it. But they didn't necessarily know how they wanted to add to it from a production standpoint. So the song ended up sitting. And maybe after a few months, maybe 6 months, I sent it to another friend of mine, one of my Morehouse brothers. And I was like, yo, man, can you add some drums and some bass to this or whatever? I want to see what this turns into. He did that, and it's like it started coming to life more. I'm like, yo, this is kind of jamming. Um, Fast forward, he ends up talking to another guy who had been nominated for a Grammy that year for his work. So they're just catching up. And that songwriter's like, hey, man, send me some stuff you kind of been working on. He sent him what we had at the time. He ends up writing another part of the song. He collaborates with Shaggy frequently, and that's how Shaggy heard the song. Shaggy hears the song, is like, man, I love the song. So Shaggy starts to add to it. And then during the course of him adding to it, he's in LA working on a feature for another artist. But the artist he's working on a feature for just so happens to be affiliated with Sting's manager. So Sting's manager is in there, and they're working on something for an artist named Eileen Farmer, who's in France. So it has nothing to do with him. He's providing a feature for another artist. And during a break, Sting's manager's like, hey, play me some stuff you've been working on. And Shaggy plays him maybe 5 or 6 songs, and one of those songs, or snippets, if you will, incomplete songs, was "Don't Make Me Wait." And Sting's manager starts to think about it like, man, this would be a great song to do a duet on or a collab on. He ends up thinking of Sting, sends emails, calls Sting, tells him he has a song that he thinks he would be great on, sends it over to Sting, and Sting shows up 45 minutes later to the studio, walking in the door, singing the chorus, and they immediately start recording. So, and I have the picture and some video footage of like Sting with a full beard and Shaggy with low hair on the night that they started recording "Don't Make Me Wait." So I get the call first. A little bit of backstory. First, it was going to be a duet with John Legend.
Oh, wow.
But at the time, there was concern that John Legend wasn't going to have the time to promote. So they kind of backed away from that. And they were like, Cam, nah, we're just going to keep you on the song. And I'm like, great, And then I got a call maybe a week later, and it was like, man, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is you're no longer on the chorus. And I'm like, all right. He was like, the good news is Sting is the one doing the chorus now. I'm like, yo. Right? I'm a huge Police fan. I got the Police over here, but I'm a huge Police fan and Sting fan as well. So I'm sitting there like, this is amazing. So they recorded the song, at least part of the song, and a whole nother year passed. I mean, mind you, I'm thinking I'm instantly about to be rich and famous, and a whole year passed before I even heard anything again. And it was originally going to be released on a project Shaggy had started. He started releasing a couple singles, and I was told that the single with Sting would be released then. Wasn't released then. Mind you, I'm still teaching. And at this point in my teaching career, I'm ready to go, I'm thinking this is my way out. And I had to wait, man. I had to wait like almost a year and a half, maybe 2 years after it was recorded, for it even to be brought up again. When it finally came back around, I was told, hey, you know, they're going to release the single. And I was like, great, you know, and I was told they're going to, you know, they're going to do it at the Super Bowl, at the Super Bowl. I'm like, great. I just started going to the Grammys every year. And on my way to the Grammys that year, I get a call and it's like, hey, bro, they're going to perform the song on the Grammys. And I was like, wow. First it was, Sting's going to present an award and they're going to play Don't Make Me Wait in the background. I was like, dope. Then it was, hey, bro, they're going to perform the song on the Grammys. I'm like, wow. And then it was, hey, bro, they're going to do a subway carpool karaoke with James Corbin. And they're going to do Don't Make Me Wait. So all of this is happening like at the same time frame. That's the same time frame that I actually ended up meeting Sting and Shaggy. And, you know, the rest is kind of history. But the most important thing is it led to an opportunity for me to start performing with Sting and Shaggy. The song was played everywhere, on every major television show, talk show you can have, Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, The View, Good Morning America multiple times. I was in the audience when they performed it on Good Morning America. They performed it for the Queen of England's like 90th birthday party. So I'm like watching them perform the song for the royal family. So all of these different things occurred with one song, you know, and it was a blessing, man. Like we ended up being able to win a Grammy for the album, and the album was created based on that song. So that one song created the idea of the collaboration, which created the album, which created, you know, a tour and all these different opportunities, and it ended up resulting in my first Grammy win, which was for me very, very humbling because I had been working so hard, and I've been working hard at R&B. You know, I'm just gonna do R&B, 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 and I end up getting an opportunity to, you know, come through a completely different doorway, doing what it is that I do. If you remember earlier, I talked about playing the guitar and singing. So it was an opportunity for what it is I do best to be showcased, and songwriting, to all be showcased through one of the greatest that's ever done it. You know, this guy's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. You know, he has Castle. So it's one of them things where I'll forever be grateful for the opportunity, definitely to do more. But inside of the opportunity was me just doing what it was I was doing, you know, doing my thing, and the creator finding a way for that song to make it to the destination and for it to come out, you know.
Man, that is incredible. So yes, congratulations on that Grammy win, the first of many, I'm sure.
Yes.
So you mentioned way back at the beginning of our conversation, patience. And since you stuck to your guns about who you were as an artist, as a creative, it took you a bit longer to accomplish these goals. What message do you have for the creatives out there that are taking the more patient route?
You know, they say patience is a virtue, and sometimes even inside of patience, you turn the clock on. You know, you'll say, I've been patient for this amount of time. I should be this place by now. And it really isn't about that. It has more to do with your patience with yourself. You know, you're developing while you're being patient. That's the idea, at least. Hopefully you're not just waiting for somebody to see you as you were 2 years ago when you started being patient. You should be further along 2 years later in your patience journey than you were when you first started. And if that's the case, and somebody is able to see and recognize it for what it is, then you have an opportunity to showcase what it is that you do best. So for the people who are out there being patient, there's something that you're supposed to be doing during this time period. It doesn't mean waiting without action. It means you're waiting on an element to be activated. But you got to there has to be something to cause an activation, if you will, you know. It's like a science experiment where you're pouring, you know, Coke on baking soda or something like that. You know, when the baking soda fizzes, it's there. It always had the potential to fizz the whole time, you know, but you got to pour that activating ingredient on it to make it catalyze and do what it's supposed to do. So patience is just really about you're fine tuning that substance that's going to be activated, and you don't want it to not be what it needs to be before that water or that other thing gets added to you. You want it to work, so you got to make sure that you're in a position and you're ready for it to work that way.
Yes, sir. That was a whole message with a little science mixed in. Such a Morehouse man, the catalyst and activation and stuff. I'm here for it. Well, we're going to move to the next song on your list, which is actually one of yours as an artist. It is Kiss and Make Up by Kameron Corvet. So if you're just joining us, y'all, this is 5 songs that changed my life. Our special guest tonight is none other than Kameron Corvet, and we're about to listen to Kiss and Make Up. Yes, sir.
My jam right there.
Yes, sir. You did that.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it,
So,
bro. Appreciate it.
absolutely. So tell us about how that one changed your life, man.
I grew up, people don't know this about my story, or some do. My parents were pen pals. They did not meet in a regular type of environment. They were introduced to each other through a mutual friend at a distance. And this was back before, cell phones and everything like that. So they wrote letters to each other. That was the way they communicated with each other. That was the way they got to know each other. And they only did that for 2 weeks. So they met, wrote letters with one another for 2 weeks, and then my grandmother and my mother got in an argument. My mom had just graduated from nursing school. So she was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to join the Army, or join the Air Force, rather. She was talking to my dad on the phone, and he was like, listen, if you want to join the Air Force, come out here first. And then if you still want to join the Air Force, I'll help you enlist. So he flew my mom to South Dakota, which is where they were living at the time. And 2 weeks later, they got married. So my parents knew each other for a month before they were like husband and wife. And what that does is it's romantic. It's a great idea. It's one of the reasons why I'm so, whimsical with some of my ideas as it relates to love. But at the same time, the flip side of the coin is that when you don't know somebody and you get married to them, there's a lot that you're going to find out about them, and there might be some things you don't like. So you are going to go through the aches and pains of a relationship, but you got a ring on your finger. And then all of a sudden you got 1 kid, and then you got 2 kids, and then 3. So part of my childhood was watching my parents in an earlier stage of their marriage go through some of the aches and pains. And there were plenty of times when my brother and I used to go to sleep and my parents would be arguing, and the light in our room would be off, but there would be like light coming from the hallway. You could just hear them going back and forth. And then all of a sudden you fall asleep, wake up the next day, and everything's all good, So Kiss and Make Up was written based on seeing that growing up, because it really impacted me, because all I know when I'm in a relationship is just staying in the relationship. It's very hard for me to walk away from a relationship, even if there's enough for me to walk away from. I'm just so used to just thugging it out. So Kiss and Make Up, the idea came from, the terminology or the idiom, just kiss and make up, right? But it's, for me, sometimes in songwriting, it's about taking things I've been trained to remember and flipping them and diving into what the idea could really mean. I remember it being the first song that I really actually composed on guitar, in terms of every section in that song is its own thing, and as a musician, or as a self-taught musician mainly, you want to write songs that you can sing to and write to, but you also want the music to grab people too. So it was one of the first songs that I had that I felt like, as an instrumental, represented a piece of music art, if you will. And it then made my writing step up and I made sure that I wrote in a fashion that was going to complement the music. It was very John Mayer-like inspired, like Your Body is a Wonderland helped really inspired the way that I played the song. I'm finger plucking, similar to that. And then John Mayer's writing is phenomenal. So, after listening to, I think it was his first album, I think his first album or something. I saw John Mayer perform live as well, and he was just as amazing live on acoustic as on the record. So he became a benchmark. Like, if I'm gonna do this singer-songwriter thing, I gotta do it. I gotta step my game up. And Kiss and Make Up was the first like creation after making that commitment.
Nice, nice. So I love that you're talking about artists from various genres and pulling all that influence together. Do you feel the need, as, let's be honest, a black male artist, to sort of put yourself in one area?
Uh, I don't feel the need to personally put myself in an area. I've always attacked the industry from an outsider's perspective, and I was warned very early on that, you know, the road was going to be more difficult. But I think the road has been more rewarding and more substantial in terms of having a career. The goal is to have a career. So for me, I knew that I was making a commitment to the wait, you know, the patience, and you know, part of that is being able to recognize a situation where somebody wants to take you and change you, you know. That's really dangerous, especially if you don't believe in the stuff that is being told that, you know, you should be doing. If you don't believe in that and you rock with it anyway, you're putting yourself in a position to now be the carrier of a message that you don't really support. And who knows what that's going to be. So, you know, I feel the need to represent the culture, but not a need to represent the culture in a way that's different from who I am as a person. I'm black. I went to private school. Everybody can get over it. You know what I'm saying? I taught kids in the South Side, on the South Side of Atlanta. So, you know, I've lived on the South Side of Atlanta. I taught on Bankhead Highway, if people are familiar with Atlanta. I taught on Bankhead Highway at an all-boys school called Best Academy, and I've never skipped a step in this process. So what it is I'm bringing into the table is a summation of all of those things, and I feel like it takes away from who I am as a person to not be as inspired by John Mayer as I am by Babyface, and put them both together in the same context. Inspired by D'Angelo, but inspired by Sting too. They can all coexist, and it all turns into who you get, you know. So I have felt tempted to amplify certain parts of my artistry in order to get in the door. But even when I've done that, bro, it hasn't worked out. It's almost been like the creator, like, I'm not going to bless you, and I'm not going to amplify your voice for everybody to see it unless you do what it is I put in you to do. Unless you do what it is, you know, I gave you the abilities to do. Like, I'm not somebody who does a whole bunch of runs, you know. My thing is, I write the song, and the melody of the song represents whatever it is I would want to do vocally. You know what I'm saying? With exception here and there. But I've realized here recently, like, man, I'm not gonna be. It's just not gonna work if I'm not doing my thing. You know, I've had enough times to be like, you know, I'm gonna do this type of record and write this type of record, and people hear it and they're like, man, that would be a great record for you. And even when I start talking about it or even think about putting it out, something happens and it's not meant to move forward, you know. But a song like Don't Make Me Wait, with me playing on my guitar and singing just like I normally do, is the one that makes it and gets me the Grammy. It was a big eye-opening experience. So staying true to yourself is something I remind myself of every day. But you know, I definitely am more convicted about being who I am, and not anxious to change in any way in particular for anybody.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. So another artist who stayed themselves and stayed true to themselves for their entire career is Prince. So the next song on your list is "The Beautiful Ones" by Prince. Everybody knows it, but we're going to listen to a little bit anyway, because why not? And
Why
then we're
not?
going to talk about it, right? Why not, man?
Jam.
Prince, what can you say?
There's not much that could be said that hasn't already been said.
But that's all right. Say it anyway.
You know, it's funny. My mom has 5 brothers and sisters, so they all are staggered in age. They all listen to different things. So when I would be with each one of them, they would be listening to different things. That's what first started my love for just all types of music. And one of my aunts used to listen to Prince. all the time. And I heard the songs that were on the radio, but I remember being in college and, you know, we had like basic cable in our dorm rooms that just came with the tuition or the room and board. And it was a Saturday afternoon and Purple Rain came on. It was the first time I had seen Purple Rain in its entirety. And I watched the movie and there were so many similarities with like certain things that Prince did in the movie, not artist things, but just human things that I'm like, yo, I do that too, you know. And that scene in the movie where Morris brings Apollonia into, you know, First Avenue and he's trying to wine and dine her, and it just happens to be when Prince is about to get on stage, and he comes out and he looks and he wants to be mad at first, but then he goes to the stage and it's like he takes it out and it's on them in his performance. And at the end of the performance, you know, you got that thug tear coming down Apollonia's cheek and Morris is mad, and you know, it was just a powerful, very powerful performance. The song, like a lot of other Prince songs, just makes you feel a certain type of emotion, and it makes you want to listen again and dive into it further and find other things to love about it. So it's always been one of my favorite songs to perform when it comes to covering, you know, any type of artist. So yeah, it really changed my life in the way of writing a ballad that can be intense without necessarily screaming the entire time, picking moments to use the falsetto to add those nuances, and then the moment to scream and belt everything out. So the emotion of the song is really what changed me.
Absolutely. The ebb and flow, if you will. Very nice. So Prince was very convicted, especially toward the latter part of his career, about being an independent artist and having ownership. I know that you pursued that route as well. How do you feel about going that route versus the major labels?
I think there's always room for a partnership to be created that gives an artist a platform to be major. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think the concept of a label and the concept of major label is now started has now started to be separated. You know, because you could have a label and it not be major, or you could be major and not be on a label now. And I think that's an important thing for people to remember. But labels are big banks. They're music business banks, you know.
Yeah.
There's no credit that you're taking in there. The credit that you're taking in there is credibility, which is, you know, the people who are walking you in the door, be that a manager, be that a producer, be that anything, anybody who's got some skin in the game, or your talent, or whatever it is. So for me, being an independent artist really started as an opportunity for me to present myself the way I want to be presented, and in hopes and trusting that somewhere, somehow, as I'm in the circle of doing what it is I do, somebody's gonna notice what it is I do for what it is and want to amplify that voice, want to amplify that music, want to partner with that music, what I'm bringing to the table as an artist, and make it into a bigger thing than what it is. So I feel like there's a place for major labels. Unfortunately, you have to kind of have the right type of situation going in order to knock it out the park on the first go. Otherwise, you're going to lose in some way. You're either going to lose because you're not going to be able to have as much creative control as you want, or you're going to lose because you're not going to be able to make as much money as you want, or you're going to lose because you're not going to be able to do the type of music that you want, in the sense that you're not going to be able to present yourself the way that you want to be presented. So there's a pro and a con to all of it, and I feel like being an independent is almost like that college experience, like I told you about. Let's not rush to do the major label thing. I'm gonna go to college first. I'm gonna do the independent route and get an understanding of what my fans want to hear from me first before I jump to a major to give it to them. It's better to come with your own plan, and that's what doing it the indie route allows you to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautifully said. So the next song on your list is, my God, a classic, an emotional tearjerker, "Giving Up" by Donny Hathaway. We're going to listen to a little bit and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay, Donnie's saying everybody else quit. Just go home. It's
Right.
over.
It's over.
It's over. Man, so tell me about that song in particular and how it influenced you.
Um, so my parents are Donny Hathaway fans. So the story goes, they were making love to some Donny Hathaway music when I was
Oh my,
conceived. That's what my mom says. Thanks. So I always, I remember being in Louisiana and my uncle sending me a videotape because we didn't have any family in Louisiana. My dad's from Savannah, my mom's from Cincinnati, and my dad was stationed in Baton Rouge. And that's why, you know, I ended up being born there and growing up there. So I didn't grow up around an extended family. So they would send us things. And one year for Christmas, my uncle sent us a recording of them doing This Christmas by Donny Hathaway, and they were like, you know, dressed up in like festive, like holiday gear, and they were lip syncing the song and everything. So that always stuck with me as the song, right? But never as the artist until I got a little older and my mom started playing Donny Hathaway, you know, just randomly, maybe cleaning on a Saturday or something, when we would all be home and not doing anything. And at a particular point, myself, and I became a huge Donny Hathaway fan. The way he emotes through his vocals, it's like he's just breathing. He's not trying at all. No run is wasted. You know, he doesn't overdo it. You know, so uh, giving up the level of emotion in that song, like especially in the second verse. Oh my gosh, you know, he does a line. He's like, "She really needs me too," and then he follows up, "The little girl is all I got. Yes, it is." Oh man, and I'm just like, he went from up there to down there to in your face to pulling back. That type of control is what every vocalist should aspire to have. You know, to not just do the run they always do, but shoot, do a straight note sometimes. It's all good, you know. Use dynamics. There are other elements of the voice that we can use, but other than just running, you know. And I think Donny Hathaway, on keys, he's a monster as well. You know, is a monster as well. So Giving Up is just one of those songs that I listened to a couple times, and I just was like, man, I felt like I had been ministered to for real, you know.
yeah, absolutely. So speaking of vocalists who use dynamics greatly, and I know the two of them are linked actually. Marvin Gaye, just
Mm.
jeez, an immaculate vocalist. The last song on your list is "When Did You Stop Loving Me?" "When Did I Stop Loving You?" by Marvin Gaye. I had not heard this one before, so
Oh
thank you,
yeah.
sir, for the education. I appreciate it. We're gonna listen to a little bit and then we'll talk about it. All right?
All right, cool. Yeah, jamming.
It doesn't get much better, man.
Nah, jamming.
So tell me about how did that song influence you and change your life, man?
Man, I was in college and I went through a super vintage phase. Me and some of my homies were just hanging out. We were enjoying some herbal refreshments, and we just so happened to hear that record, "Hear My Dear," and then I started researching the album. And "Hear My Dear" was done by Marvin Gaye when his wife, Berry Gordy's sister, divorced him. They forced him to pay in a way that caused him to have to create music, and basically she would get all the proceeds. That album is dedicated. It's like, here, my dear, like this is your payment after our divorce. So you listen to the whole album and it's amazing. But "When Did You Stop Loving Me? When Did I Stop Loving You?" is such an amazing song because he doesn't really follow any format. He's just going. Like the verses don't sound the same. He's just going. And you hear that other voice, the high voice that's doing all the ad libs the whole time, and he's coming in and out, and the vocals and the harmonies. It's really just like he just sang the song down like 5 times, and they just left it. That's one thing I loved about Marvin Gaye. If anybody's ever seen any footage of him in those later years, where he's got the beanie on, there's a couple clips of him just laying on his back on the couch while the musicians are playing, and he's just going. He's just singing. Ain't nothing that's preconceived. He doesn't have any words. He's just going. And the idea for me is to be as free with how I express my emotion as Marvin Gaye has been in like all of his music. I mean, I think that's really the common thread between me and the people who have inspired me. Just being my authentic self and expressing myself in that way to where people can feel me. So yeah, amazing record.
Absolutely, absolutely incredible. Yeah, so you mentioned authenticity a few times today. How key do you think that is as an artist in connecting with your audience?
I think, I think the industry doesn't give the audience as much credit as they deserve. They're smarter than the industry wants to give them credit for. They can tell a fake. My kids could tell if I was faking with them on something when I was teaching them, and adults are no different. They're only, once we became able to buy songs by themselves and not have to buy a whole album, you gave the audience the power to choose what it was they were going to support. And I think that it's important for artists to be conscious of what they're making, and keep the audience in mind, when they're making it. So did I answer the question fully? Just
Yes,
to make
yes, you
sure.
did.
I can derivate sometimes, man. So I didn't want to just lead you down the wrong path, but at the same time, I'm like, man, the audience the audience knows what they want. Connecting with the audience is about making sure it's real to you.
Mhm.
Being able to tell the story authentically from your own vantage point will connect you to a lot of people in ways you never even thought you could.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, bro, we have reached the end of your song list. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on Five Songs That Changed My Life. So before we go, tell the people where they can find you and what to look forward to.
Cameron Corvet is with a K, and Corvet is Corvet. C'est français parce que je parle français très bien et tout ça. Je suis né à Baton Rouge, en Louisiane et tout ça. So make
What
sure
did
you
you
follow me. Just a little brief introduction, but follow me on IG, Facebook, and everything like that. If you Facebook, I still Facebook. I don't mind. It's all me. I respond. I'm not too big for that. And follow me on Spotify as well. Check out the Essentials. It's an amazing project, and it's got all those essential Cameron Corvet records you should know before you see me live.
Very nice, very nice. So Instagram tells me that we have 25 seconds. It's all good because we're about to be out. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me tonight. Everybody, thank you for joining us on Five Songs That Changed My Life. Have a good night.
Peace.